If you're the kind of teacher that cares deeply, then you are at a high risk of teacher burnout. And I know that nobody ever told you this, but the very traits that make you a great teacher are the very traits that the system uses against you to slowly steal your joy of teaching. But if you'll hang out till the end of this video, I will teach you what 3 of those traits are, and I will teach you the ABCs of protecting yourself as a teacher so that the system doesn't destroy your joy and so that you can care deeply without losing yourself in the process. And I know they work because I use them myself. But before we dive into all that, I have something that I want to give you because I don't want you to leave this video empty-handed. So I built a guide for you. It's free. It's 100% free, and it's always free. It's my Teach Without Burnout guide. You can get it right there in the description box or right there at the QR code on the screen. Either way, I want to encourage you to go get it so that you can start protecting yourself today. There are 3 traits that every single teacher has that the system uses against teachers in order to steal the joy out of teaching. And the number one thing that hurts teachers the most is idealism. So let me paint a picture for you that you're probably going to recognize, because every once in a while we start to feel like things are going to be different, and we feel like a little bit of hope is starting to creep back into the teaching process. We start to think that maybe the behavior problems, that we've got those tackled, or we begin to think that the parents are becoming reasonable and that they're going to support us, or that the administration is somehow going to have our back every time we need them. And what happens to us? Every single time we get punched right in the nose with a reality check. And here's the reason why. The system isn't getting better. In fact, the system is getting worse. And none of us has the ability to even change the system. The only thing that we can do is deal with our own responses and preparedness to the system. So here's a hard truth that I want to share with you. Are you ready? The greater your passion for teaching, the harder the fall when reality shows up. The second trait that every teacher has that the system uses to steal their joy from teaching is empathy. Because caring deeply about students, it costs far more than we could ever put a price tag on, because you have absorbed more than you were meant to ever carry alone. I want you to think about what you see in your classroom. We genuinely see things that are devastating. We see the results of parental abuse against our children. We see the results of parental neglect. We see the results of drug use in the home and students who have experimented with those drugs. We see the effects of suicidal ideation and self-harm. And then we carry all of that weight home with us. You can't just drop it off at the door. And what happens to a person when they go through this every single day? Well, it has a clinical name, and it's called compassion fatigue. And it's the physical and the emotional exhaustion that develops when teachers are repeatedly exposed to the trauma and suffering of others. And researchers have a name for it. It's called secondary traumatic stress. And that shows up in various ways, in particular as it relates to teachers. Number 1 is mood swings. Number 2 is social isolation. And number 3 is a broken emotional boundaries. And over the last 2 decades, I've literally watched good teachers who are warm, gifted, passionate teachers be simply broken by what their students are carrying and what they bring into the classroom every single day. And what that does to a teacher over time, and nobody talks about this, is that compassion fatigue is why so many teachers have what's called a savior complex, which is a deep compulsion to rescue or fix the problems of others, even whenever it comes at their own personal expense. And here's the thing, your ability and your willingness to care, that's what makes you great at this job. And guess what? Your ability to care, it ain't got no off switch. And what's even worse is that the system doesn't want you to turn that off. In fact, what the system wants to do, it wants to just keep sending you kids who need you to take your caring and turn it up another notch. So while your heart's being pulled in every single direction by the needs of your students, there's a third force that works against you. And this one is so subtle that most teachers don't even see it coming. The third trait is conscientiousness. And I want to confess something to you. I wanted to be the person that everybody depended upon. I wanted to be the one that was seen as the team player. I wanted to be the one that whenever people needed something done, that they would come to me and they would look to me because they knew that I would be able to handle it and I'd be able to deliver. I wanted to be seen as the go-to person. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of you feel exactly the same way and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't want you to misunderstand, because conscientiousness, it is a genuinely wonderful character trait. But inside of a system with no limits, that trait becomes exploited, because the system trains teachers to keep giving. And they don't give through inspiration. They don't give through opportunity. We end up having to give through fear. fear of a bad evaluation, fear of getting written up, fear of a non-renewal, fear of being labeled as a non-team player, fear of being labeled as a difficult employee and teacher. Here's what the research found is that 88% of teachers report actually working 15 plus hours a week of unpaid overtime. And why do they do that? Because there are gaps to fill in the system. And who fills those gaps? The teacher that cares entirely too much. And every single bit of that is all disguised as dedication. But here's the part that they'll never tell you. You can do all of those things. You can be dependable. You can volunteer your time to come in early. You can volunteer your time to stay late. You can work in the system for all of your entire life, and yet the system doesn't give a single thing back to you. In fact, if you're not careful, the system will lay all of the blame for the failures right at your feet. So if anything I just described sounds familiar to you, if you've been pouring out your life and everything that you have into a system that just keeps asking for more, I want to introduce you to something, and this profoundly changed my life. It's called The Power of Enough, and it's a resource that I created specifically for teachers, specifically for you that are tired, that are running on empty, and they have no idea where the finish line is, and they have no idea when they've ever done enough. And if that's something that interests you, it's right down there in the description box. You can get it at the QR code. Either way, go grab it so that you can learn the power of enough. So burnout is not a personal failure. It's what happens when good teachers work in a system that just does not respect its workers. And I know this from personal experience because 4 years ago, I woke up and my face went completely paralyzed. I mean, I thought I had a stroke. My wife thought I had a stroke. The kids at school thought I had a stroke. And thank the Lord that I didn't have a stroke. But what I did have is a manifestation of chronic stress that nearly cost me my life. And it almost cost me my career. And my doctor said to me whenever I sat in front of me, he says, John, he says, if you don't do something about your stress, then your stress is going to do something about you. So I had to make a change. And that change started with one verse from the Bible. Here at Teacher Talk, we're a faith-forward organization. Our core verse is Proverbs chapter 4, verse number 23, that says, above all else, guard your heart, for from it flow the issues of life. And I want to make sure I'm clear, because when I say heart, I don't mean the muscle. I mean the core of who you are, the real person that's on the inside of you, your thoughts, your intentions, your behavior, and your emotions. So here's what I finally learned and understood is that I left my heart unguarded, and I let my idealism, my empathy, and my conscientious nature let the system walk all over top of me. And what it did is it left me as an empty shell of a teacher that I once was. I bet some of you understand that. And what's more is I wish somebody had told me that before my stroke scare, because I needed to hear that. I needed to guard my heart because the system will not do that for you. So let me tell you about the ABCs of protecting yourself from a system that'll take everything that you give it. Number one, you cannot have control before you have awareness. And awareness is learning how to name and identify specific things that are draining you and learning how to sort them out into two piles. So over here in pile one, you got to take all the things that belong to the system. And don't misunderstand, they're real, they are genuinely difficult, but the things that we put into pile one, we have absolutely no ability to change. For instance, we can't change poor pay. We can't change administrative failures. We cannot change parents that do not parent. All of those have to go into pile one over here. And once they're in that pile, we have to practice the discipline of leaving them there and not allowing them to have control or have an effect over our life. And over here in pile two, we have to take the things that we can actually control and dump them over here into this pile. Some of the things that we can control is that we can control our response to stressful situations, or we can control our evening routines and our backgrounds. We can control our inner life and our self-talk, or the way that we speak to ourselves. All of those things we have control of. And here's the thing, is that most burned out teachers, they've never sorted these things out into two piles. Rather, they got them all in one pile and they're trying to carry them all by themselves. Awareness is the act of putting things where they actually belong and leaving them there. And once you've done that and you can now see clearly what is yours and what is not yours, the next step is learning to draw lines that will protect what you have left. And those lines are called boundaries. And the most important line that you need to draw is you need to learn to leave the mental work of teaching at school. And when I say the mental work, I mean things like the stress about tomorrow, the worrying about things that didn't get done, the worry about a struggling student, or the anxiety about what a mad parent may report on us. All of that has to stay at school. And I know that that's very difficult because I struggled with it myself for years. But I did learn the discipline of drawing lines that were non-negotiable. And here's why that matters. And it goes far beyond our feelings, because boundaries send a safety signal to our nervous system. So when you draw a firm, non-negotiable boundary line between your work life and your personal life, what your brain does and what your body does is it begins to, over time, it registers that and it says, hey, I'm safe. I don't have to stay in fight or flight any longer. And here's the thing, non-negotiable boundaries, they're not weakness. Non-negotiable boundaries, it's like building a wall around your heart, a barrier to guard your heart, and you're building it brick by brick. Before I go on to C, I want to stop right here for just a second, because if you're recognizing yourself in some of what I've talked about, then I want to talk to you personally. I don't want to talk at you. I want to talk with you. And I want to have a real one-on-one conversation between you and me. I want to talk to you about where you're at and what the next steps are for you specifically. You can book a discovery call with me, and you can find the link down in the description box, or you can get it right there at the QR code on the screen. Either way, I want to encourage you to go get it, because you don't have to struggle alone. And so the third thing that we need to do is we got to take control. We got to take back what the system's been stealing from us. And you can only do that when you know what's been draining you and you have put in non-negotiable boundaries in place. And when you do that, you are now in a position to where you can take concrete action to take back control from a system that steals and destroys everything that you give it. And this is probably the best news that you've heard in this entire video, because what it says to you is it says that you're not helpless. You're not stuck. You're not too far gone. You really are a great teacher, but you're a great teacher that's been operating inside of a system that is designed to use you, and you've been doing it without a framework to protect yourself. And as great as the ABCs are, I want you to know this, that they won't fix the system, but they will fix your relationship to the system. And that is the only thing that any of us have any power to change. Now, I know that all of you already know how bad the system is, and I know that the system is hurting many of you, but the truth is that there are 9 things that you're doing at home that are hurting you much worse than what the system is. And if you're interested in those things, I want to encourage you to watch that video right there, and it'll help you. And until then, stay strong and keep teaching.